What happens when a child born from tragedy chooses to heal instead of hate? This is the unforgettable story of a blind man, a singing bird, and a mother who buried her past until it came back singing. Set in the heart of Nigeria, The Blind Man and the Singing Bird is a soul-stirring tale of a brilliant young woman shattered by violence, a forsaken child who finds love in the arms of a blind stranger, and a destiny that refuses to stay buried. From pain to peace. From silence to song. This is a story about grace, the kind that returns when we least deserve it, but most need it. The Blind Man and the Singing Bird. A Nigerian story of pain, love, and redemption. In the city of Lagos, Adiz was born to a devout Christian home, the only daughter of a deacon and deaconess. Her childhood was strict, structured, and painfully quiet. She was brilliant, top of her class in medicine, but lonely. Her parents taught her obedience and perfection, not affection. She grew up without friends, without freedom, without softness. At 24, she graduated as a medical doctor and was posted to a rural village outside Lagos for her national service, NYSC. It was her first time away from her parents, her church, her cage. But life didn't give her a warm welcome. On her first day in the village, as she walked alone from the park to the corpus lodge, she was attacked, robbed, and raped. She told no one. She bore the shame like a shadow. When she discovered she was pregnant, her fear turned to paralysis. She imagined her father's disappointment, her mother's coldness, the judgment of the church, and she broke. One rainy morning, she walked into the forest outside the village. Alone. In pain. She gave birth to a baby girl, fragile, quiet, alive. She held the baby for an hour. Then, with shaking hands and a shattering heart, she laid her child in the bush and walked away. She never looked back. The Blind Man. Bobaton was a blind man who lived on the edge of that same village. He was known for his gentleness and quiet wisdom. Every morning, he walked with a wooden cane and sat beneath the same tree, facing the rising sun he could no longer see. That day, as the wind shifted through the forest, he heard something. A cry. He followed it, guided not by sight, but by spirit. There, lying in the grass like a forgotten prayer, was the baby. He lifted her into his arms and whispered, "You are not alone." He raised her as his own. But the girl was different. She never spoke. Not a single word. Yet from an early age, she sang. Melodies would float from her lips, haunting and beautiful. Villagers came to hear her. Her voice softened even the hardest hearts. Some said she wasn't normal. Others said she was a spirit. Bobaton simply said, "She's a gift." When she was 6, tragedy struck. A lightning storm sparked a fire in the village. Their small hut caught flame. Bobaton escaped, but the girl didn't. Or so it seemed. That night, as Boba sat beneath their tree in mourning, he heard a sound. A familiar song, not from memory, but from the branches above. And there, perched on the tree, was a small bird. Golden. Glowing. Singing her song. He smiled through tears. "You came back," he whispered. The bird. The girl had died, but her soul had not gone. She returned as a bird, not by magic, but by will. A child born from violence and abandonment, yet raised in love, chose not to become bitterness, but beauty. She became a songbird, not just of melody, but of healing. Every morning, she returned to that tree to sing for Bobaton. People came from other towns to hear her. Recordings never captured the magic. Only those who sat beneath her tree in silence truly understood. When Bobaton died years later, the bird sang her longest song yet. Then, she vanished. The mother's return. Meanwhile, Addis had built a new life. She married a good man named Chuka. But despite years of trying, they could not have children. They prayed, fasted, went for medical treatments, nothing. Then Chuka was in a car accident that left him paralyzed. In desperation, they turned to a native healer. They traveled far, unknowingly arriving at the same village where Addis had abandoned her child years ago. The healer, an old woman with clouded eyes, immediately recognized her. She placed a stone in Addis' palm and said, "There is a blood you left behind. A child forsaken." Her soul never stopped calling. Addis broke down. She confessed everything to Chuka, the rape, the child, the bush, the silence. She expected him to walk away. Instead, he held her hand and said, "Then let's find her. Even if it's too late." Full circle. They searched for weeks. They asked elders. Finally, they were told of a blind man who once raised a strange little girl, and after her death, a bird that sang her songs. They found the tree, the bench, the silence. Addis stood beneath it, her heart in her throat. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry. I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how." And then, the wind stirred. The bird descended. She landed softly on Addis' shoulder. And sang. Not just a melody, but memory. The cry from the bush. The warmth of Bobaton's hands. The feeling of being held, and finally forgiven. Addis wept. Not from guilt, but from grace. She opened her eyes and whispered, "Thank you for coming back to me." Afterward, Addis and Chuka built a small children's clinic in the village. They named it The Nest. They adopted 2 children. Chuka slowly began to walk again. And every morning, without fail, the bird returned to the tree. And sang. Not for crowds. Not for fame. But for a mother who found her child again. And a child who chose to become light instead of darkness. Final reflection. This is not just a story. It's a truth we all feel. Sometimes, life breaks us in unspeakable ways. But even the most wounded soul can choose to return, not as revenge, but as healing. And sometimes, the ones we leave behind are the ones who teach us how to come home.